do their job. Thank you so much. Before further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Osman Bajan, the Executive Chairperson of Academia 2063, to kindly join the stage, give a welcome note, and I request Dr. Osman Bajan, once his speech is over, to kindly welcome a Honorable Permanent Secretary on the dais. Thank you so much.
Murakoze. Muramutse. Dr. Kamana, Permanent Secretary, welcome. To our guest and CEO Oyewole, welcome as well of PAFO, and other representatives from agencies of the government. You are most welcome. Our collaborators from the countries who are here, the 5 countries we're working with, Uganda, Benin, Malawi, Senegal, and Ghana. We're happy and pleased to have you here with us. Representative of the private sector, thank you for making time to be here. It is a pleasure for us to partner with PAFO, the Pan-African Farmers Organization, on this new project. We appreciate the support from the German government through BMZ and GIZ for this work, which is going to take us 2.5 years to complete. Digitally enabled resilience policy innovation is the name of the project. Resilience policies are important coming out of COVID and in the middle of Ukraine, but even before COVID, your Ebolas, your droughts, and other things have exposed our countries to shocks that are recurrent from different natures, health, trade, conflicts, weather. But those shocks, when they come, they really affect our most vulnerables significantly. Question is, do we always have to wait until we get the shocks and to react and always be behind the curve, or is there something we can do to better understand the root causes of vulnerability, chronic vulnerability, understand the drivers, and then be prepared to anticipate and meet shocks before they arrive and reduce that level of high chronic vulnerability to increase the absorption capacity of shocks, but also have the tools and interventions to react to those shocks. There's always many ways to do a lot of things, but if you don't have the time, because you already have large-scale chronic vulnerability, and if you don't have the resources, because you have so many demands left and right, then you're in a difficult space, but also a space where you need to be innovative and creative. So the purpose of this project is how can we be more creative to do things for which we don't have time, no resources, but get them done and get them done at scale and efficiently and sooner. And there's nothing that allows us to do that better than digital technologies. With digital technology, we can overcome the need to build infrastructure to get into all these communities. With digital tools, we can overcome the need to build institutions to take care of all these things. With digital tools, we can overcome the staffing and expert shortage to get things done. So that allow us to do things much more at a wider scale and much faster and much more cheaply than we would have done traditionally. That is the purpose of this project. How can we together invent those different tools? How can we together provide the content and the format to allow government, private sector, and farmers' organizations, farmers themselves, to have different tools, products, and services that helps them enhance the resilience of the food systems, because they can produce better and more sustainably and more resiliently. Private sector operate because they can operate in an environment where they can anticipate shock and uncertainties and deal with it. Governments because they can design and put to use programs and interventions that are better targeted, that are much more timely and much more at scale. So that is what is behind this project. We are open-minded. We do have the tools to develop content and format. We do have the data set to start working on that, but we want these tools and these data sets to be put to use to, together with you, co-create the content, the products, and the services. So it's going to be a very interactive way of working with you. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that we have innovated at the end of these 2.5 years for enough products and services that are being used across that spectrum, government, private sector, farmers organizations, civil society organization, to help us come up with the policies, the programs, the actions, and the decisions that will make our food systems much more resilient. So we welcome all of you who are here to work with us, and we look forward to the collaboration and your contribution over the next 2.5 years. Murakoze Chane. Karibu. Bye-bye. And let me now have the distinct pleasure and honor to welcome Dr. Olivier Kamana, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture, for his welcoming statement. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Badian. Good morning, dear delegates, Dr. Badian, Chairperson of Academia 2063 and co-chair of the Malabo-Montpellier Forum, and Dr. Babafemi Oyewole, CEO of the PAFO, representatives of development partner organizations, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Kigali. Murakaza nezi wacu. Yes. It's a great privilege that both Academia 2063 and PAFO, the institutions dedicated to drive the continental agenda on food systems transformation and farmers' empowerment, have chosen Kigali as their headquarters. Yes, so it's not by default because Kigali is the capital of the but we proceed anyway. So this alone testifies the quality of yes? Okay. So to welcome you all. The focus on the project, Digitally Enabled Resilience and Nutrition Policy Innovations, could not be more timely and is of particular importance and offers an opportunity to pilot innovative solutions that will help African governments to implement their post-UN Food Systems Summit and climate change agendas. The past years have been challenging for the world and our continent. The health, economic, and the geopolitical crisis have all now come together in a perfect storm to initiate a food security crisis too. The cost of inputs has soared, and sometimes inputs are not available in needed quantities. Wheat, maize, and oilseed prices have surged. As if this is not enough, weather-induced climate shocks still hurt the most vulnerable due to failed crops and livestock losses, adding a burden to our growing economies. In my own country, according to the Rwanda Green Fund, FONERWA, 5 years ago, climate-related disasters costed more than $200 million in damage to property, crops, livestock, and other losses, and the costs have since risen. Our solutions to shield our farmers from negative climate change effects and strengthen their resilience now must be even more holistic and innovative. As far as strengthening food systems resilience is concerned, the government of Rwanda has made significant investments in sustainable land management to reduce the soil erosion and developed the National Irrigation Master Plan to expand the irrigation coverage. In addition, addressing challenges related to nutrition remains one of the priorities for the government. In this regard, the government of Rwanda has been supporting in water, sanitation, and hygiene wash programs, early childhood, and incentivizing the private sector in the massive production and the distribution of nutritious baby foods. To strengthen the resilience of smallholder farmers to climate shocks, the government set up the National Agriculture Insurance Scheme. That is a partnership between the government of Rwanda and some of the country's private insurance providers, which promotes the adoption of crop insurance by smallholder farmers to mitigate against the effects of climate change. I'm glad to learn about the partnership between Academia 2063 and PAFO to pilot the project in targeted African countries with technical assistance to bring in the economics, data, and analytics for evidence-based policy innovation and to build climate-resilient nutrition programs. We hope that Academia 2063 and PAFO will share their findings and products developed under the project, as well as the resulting policy recommendations for adoption in other African countries. I trust that the discussions today and meaningful exchanges will allow us to do more in strengthening the resilience of our food systems to climate change and to withstand other future shocks. I'm pleased to officially launch the Digitally Enabled Resilience and Nutrition Policy Innovations Project and wish you successful deliberations over the course of today and tomorrow. Thank you very much. Murakoze cyane.
Thank you so much, Honorable Permanent Secretary. We appreciate the words of wisdom that you shared with us on this project. I want to inform the audience that we are having an online audience following us live through Zoom. And we have Mrs. Barbara Kraus, that was from GIZ, that was supposed to join us. Not sure if the technically is possible now. But if not, I would like to invite Dr. Catherine Glaser. Is she available? Barbara, are you available? Can you hear us? Yeah. So if Barbara is not yet technically available, we know she'll be able to join. I'd like to invite Dr. Catherine Glaser, who is the Director of Policy Innovation Department with Academia, to kindly join and give us really a more detailed presentation of this project. Thank you so much. Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you very much, Serafin, and Permanent Secretary Dr. Kamana, Dr. Babafemi, Dr. Usman, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be back in Kigali for the launch of the DERPIn project. And yeah, it's my pleasure to introduce the project in more detail to you today. Could I have the slides, please? Well, while we wait for the slides, I can perhaps give you a few introductory information about the project. Like Dr. Usman already mentioned, the DERPIn project is a 3-year project which started in December last year, and it will run until December 2025. It's been commissioned by the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development and part of the Fund for Promotion of Innovation in Agriculture, the I4Ag Fund. It's carried out by Academia 2063 on behalf of GIZ and in partnership with PAFO. And it's also implemented with national research partners in the 5 case study countries that we're working with. And those are Benin, Ghana, Malawi, Uganda, and Senegal. Still waiting for my slides. Great. Now they're here. But the pointer. Yeah. No, the. Perfect. Don't think the pointer is working. Yep. Okay, perfect. So, yeah, like Dr. Usman already mentioned, the context or the broader context of the DERPIn project, countries in Africa are amongst the most vulnerable to climate shocks in the world. We know that extreme weather events destroy assets and livelihoods, while changing weather patterns permanently disrupt food systems activities. Okay, perfect. Which results in uncertain planting periods, poor yield performance, and in turn negatively impacting communities' food security and nutrition status. And this applies both to rural and to urban areas. High levels of vulnerability and low absorptive capacities compound the disruptive effects of climatic and other socioeconomic shocks, such as COVID-19, war in Ukraine, conflict, trade disruptions, and overall economic fragility. And this is just to name a few. So the vulnerability of agricultural and rural communities originates partly from severely limited access to timely, reliable, and spatially disaggregated data, including future-oriented forecasts for adequate planning and preparedness at the government level. And existing techniques and methodologies so far insufficiently capture ongoing and future crisis dynamics and undermine better informed decision-making, both for government but also private sector actors and civil society. So with the DERPIn project, we aim to position governments to be better prepared and to increase the resilience of all food system actors. So with the DERPIn project, like I said, we seek to de-link vulnerability from large-scale and permanent disruption by enhancing countries' capacity to innovate and to craft more effective and timely resilience-building policies and programs. This starts with tools, data, and analytics for 3 aspects. First of all, to clearly understand and track the drivers of vulnerability at a disaggregated community level and across social strata. Secondly, predict how different shocks may affect livelihoods and the related distribution of assets, access to services and power relationships. And thirdly, to adapt and adjust policy solutions to the changing nature of shocks, their locus, severity, and transmission channels. We really think and believe, and that's sort of the essence of the DERPIn project, that African countries must overcome the infrastructural, institutional, and technical constraints that are hampering the planning and implementation of resilience policies that respond more effectively and at scale to the complexity of the shocks that the food system is facing. And we believe that digital technologies provide a real opportunity to rapidly identify innovations, but also lower cost solutions. And across Africa, advancements in digital infrastructure, big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence can be leveraged to create the tools and the analytical content to untangle those complex interactions between food systems disruptions and community livelihoods, and to design and implement policies that allow governments to be better prepared. Good. So the mission of DERPIn will be to develop an integrated, customizable digital infrastructure to enhance the technical capacities of food system actors and to innovate and design policy solutions that respond more effectively to the complex and changing nature of shocks that I mentioned, and also their longer-term consequences. And my colleague, Dr. Racine Lee, will be talking about this a little bit more detail this morning. So the solutions proposed in the project will be deeply anchored and will derive from participatory approaches that involve local stakeholders and beneficiaries, both in the selection and the format of input data, as well as the types of outputs that we'll be designing as a result and outcome of this project to really ensure that, that they're relevant to food systems actors and to increase the accessibility and use of the information, including by smallholder farmers through, for example, farmers' organizations. And that is also one of the reasons why we decided that we would like to partner with PAFO on the implementation of this project. Very importantly, the project is accompanied by a gender strategy with a particular focus on women's participation across all aspects of the project. Now I'll go into a little bit more detail into the specifics of the project. Like I said, the project will leverage the body of data and analytical tools and digital resources that we already established within Academia 2063 to bolster the capacity of government and value chain actors to really design those impactful policy solutions. Specifically, we will plan to expand the existing toolbox under the AGWA program. Again, many of you will already be familiar with the program, and my colleague Racine's presentation will go into more detail on that later on. DERPIn will also expand some of the work that we've been doing around the COVID-19 vulnerability indicator. So as part of its COVID-19 response work, Academia 2063 developed an innovative and method of evaluating and mapping vulnerability levels across local communities. And the current vulnerability indicator includes metrics related to poverty, food security, child malnutrition, disease prevalence, and access to health services. With DERPIn, the project proposes an expansion of the methodology devised for the COVID-19 work to include climate exposure and nutrient adequacy. Thereby, we believe we can create a more holistic and comprehensive picture of what vulnerability is about. The next aspect links to nutrition, and the nutritional status of households in vulnerable communities is one of the key indicators that could guide resilience policies to protect and to track changes in livelihoods resulting from shocks. So a better understanding and monitoring of the effects of shocks on household nutritional status in vulnerable communities would support resilience policy innovation, not only to protect livelihoods in the short term, but also to tackle the long-term consequences. So we'll be building on Academia's Nutrition Smart Processing and Trade project, the NSPT, which generates evidence to guide the formulation of policies and strategies to increase the capacity of food system actors. So we'll be working with our research partners and with PAFO member organizations at the regional and local level to expand that nutrition indicator from the current 15 micronutrients. And then finally, the work under DERPIn will be complemented with a portfolio of learning exchange and dialogue events and activities to really deploy and to apply the resources that are embedded in the digital platforms and to develop customized context and stakeholder-specific knowledge products and advisory services. And I'll be going into a little bit more detail on that aspect of the DERPIn project later this morning. I think what is really important is to say that collectively, the different activities under DERPIn, under the project, respond directly to the broader African agenda laid out in the Malabo Declaration, the AU's agenda on climate change, the African Green Recovery Action Plan, just to name a few. Yeah, project partners. I already mentioned our collaboration with PAFOM. Within Academia 2063, it's a collaboration of two departments, the Department of Policy, Innovation, my department, and the Department of Data Management, Digital Products, and Technology. And we're also drawing on the experience and expertise from other colleagues across our institution. I just wanted to name a few of the colleagues that are involved in this work. A few of them are here today. So that's our colleague Julie Collins, who's joining online, Leah Domgo, who's also joining online from Dakar, Racine Lee, who's here, Hadem Dia, joining from Dakar online, Babakar Sise, who's here in the room as well, myself, plus colleagues from across communications and administration. PAFO is our main implementing partner, and we're delighted to have PAFO regional members from Europa, EAFF, and SACAO here with us today, as well as national members from the 5 study countries. And then also on the agenda for today, our national research partners. So we're very pleased that the following partners accepted our invitation to partner with us on the DERPIn project for the next 3 years. And that's the National Institute of Agricultural Research of Benin, the University of Ghana, the Center for Agricultural Research and Development in Malawi, the Economic Policy Research Center in Uganda, and the Senegalese Institute of Agricultural Research. And that brings me to the end of the introduction to DERPIn. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Catherine, for the presentation. I think that we'll have time to go through to hear some thoughts from the audience. But in the meantime, I want to ask the IT people if Dr. Barbara is available online. Can someone confirm? Yeah, Dr. Barbara is here to join. I want to take that opportunity to invite Dr. Babafemi Oyeole, the CEO of PAFO, Pan-African Farmers Organization, which is a partner, implementing partner of this project, to kindly join the stage and give his remarks. Welcome, Dr. Baba.
Thank you very much. Dr. Usman, the Executive Chairman of Academia 2063, the Permanent Secretary representing the government of Rwanda, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, those who are here and those who are joining us online. It's a privilege for me to be part of this important occasion of the launch of the project Digitally Enabled Resilience and Nutrition Policy Innovations, which the Pan-African Farmers Organization, PAFO, is co-hosting with Academia 2063 with the support of the German government through GIZ. This collaboration with Academia is in line with the Memorandum of Understanding that we signed last year, which is to promote partnership between the two institutions and for the development of the agricultural sector in Africa. And as have been made known to us, the goal of the project is to leverage the body of data, analytical evidence, digital resources within academia 2063 and to bolster the capacity of government and value chain actors to design impactful solutions for the sustainable transformation of African food systems. Furthermore, it responds directly to the broader African agenda laid out in the Malabo Declaration, the AU Common Position on Food Systems Transformation, the AU Climate Change Strategy, and the African Green Recovery Action Plan. And just to talk on moving from rebuilding to withstanding crisis, the farmer's perspective. This topic is very appropriate to the event of today because the conception of this project was born out of the need to develop policy tools that will help farmers and other stakeholders in the agricultural value chain to become proactive in their response to disasters and risks that arise in the course of carrying out their farming activities rather than rebuilding their activities after the occurrence of such crisis. The nature, frequency, intensity, and duration of a disaster or crisis determines its impact on different entities, with smallholder farmers and the poor in both urban and rural areas disproportionately affected. Reinforcing the ability of such vulnerable people to prevent or mitigate the impacts of disasters as well as to recover from and adapt to them in a timely, efficient, and sustainable manner is imperative to the sustainability of their activities and livelihoods. This is because a vast number of agricultural activities are destroyed each year by disasters and crises. And so smallholder family farms, which subsist on production, marketing, and consumption of crops, livestock, fish, forest products, need to withstand such crisis in an environment of increasing volatility. Disasters can strike suddenly or develop slowly over time. It can occur in isolation or triggered consecutively in simultaneous combination with mutually worsening effects. Such crises pose serious challenges to smallholder farmers, agricultural production, and food security, particularly in Africa. The impact of such disasters on smallholder farmers are very devastating because the agricultural sector faces many risks, such as climate and market volatility, pests and diseases, extreme weather events, and ever-increasing number of protracted crises and conflicts. And these disasters and crises are often devastating to farmers and their household. I recall my father, who was a farmer, once recounted to me how wildfire destroyed his cocoa plantation and other crops, and the trauma that he went through in recovering from that event, because as at that time there was no insurance to indemnify him, and there was no support from the government either. So, and therefore the rebuilding of his farmland took time because of the fact that he had to carry the burden alone. And this is why we need to develop innovative tools that will help farmers to mitigate such crises whenever they occur. And we are told that the number of recorded natural disasters, along with their associated impact on livelihood at both local and national levels, are increasing significantly. On a global level, the financial and economic loss associated with such disasters now average between 250 to 300 billion every year. In developing countries, an average of 260 natural disasters occurred per year between 2005 and 2016, costing an average of 27 billion in economic loss annually. This calls for the development of capacity of farmers to enable them move from rebuilding to withstanding or mitigating the effects of climate and disasters that confront them. Agriculture often bears the disproportionate share of such impacts, and many of which are borne directly by smallholder farmers. So this project, therefore, intends to develop an innovative and integrated digital infrastructure that will help the planning and decision-making across food systems, value chain segments. And the Academia 2063 has developed the capacity to deploy innovative technologies such as remotely sensed data and machine learning techniques to inform and guide policy innovation for climate mitigation and adaptation, which will be useful to farmers in withstanding the crisis. In conclusion, agriculture often bears disproportionate share of disaster impacts, many of which are borne directly by the smallholder farmers. The sector is particularly vulnerable to natural hazards and disasters. The observed notable increase in the frequency of weather-related events over the past decades poses a significant challenge to sustainability of agricultural and food systems, given their crucial reliance on climate. Disasters can be detrimental to crop growth, livestock health, fisheries, and aquaculture production, and can seriously undermine the forestry sector. Droughts cause long-term water shortages and extreme heat in stress in crops, which can damage yields if they occur during certain times of the plant's life cycle. This explains why PAFO is collaborating with academia, the GIZ, and other development partners in implementing these projects, which covers 5 countries: Benin, Ghana, Senegal, Uganda, and Malawi, and 3 regions in PAFO network: ROPA in West Africa, EFF in East Africa, and SACAO in Southern Africa. The reason for PAFO's partnership for these projects are twofold. One is to facilitate the effective participation of its members to ensure that the digital products are developed and deployed under the project are adequate to farmers' needs and are used to advance their operations and decision-making. Second is to enable active participation by farmers' organizations in all dialogue events and relevant training activities under the project. Moreover, PAFO is expected to contribute to the achievement of the detailed indicators specified in the proposal, in particular, to comply with the implementation of the requirements and expectations laid out in the gender strategy. Developing innovative policy tools that will build the capacity of farmers, particularly the smallholder farmers, to proactively withstand crisis rather than rebuilding their activities after disaster will enhance the resilience and sustainability of food systems. PAFO is grateful to academia and the GIZ, the government of Germany for this project, and those institutions who are supporting the project, and PAFO will mobilize the farmers in its network, in particular those countries that have been selected to participate in this project, to ensure the success of the project. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Babafemi, for your remarks. And yeah, we are moving well. So hope that our audience online is also engaged as we are here, because this project is really innovative. I think it's rare to see all stakeholders beyond nutrition, because normally when you talk about nutrition, you think about riboflavin, vitamin, don't know. But this time around, we have Rwanda Space Agency in the room, space people in the room. We have statistics people in the statistics office. We have the private sector in the room. We have academia in the room. We have development partners in the room, all talking about nutrition. And you may wonder why the space agency people are here. You understand when Dr. Racine is talk about the models, the prediction models that leverage on machine learning and how to call it, big data on really nutrition. So it's very interesting that in a few minutes we'll be having Dr. Racine to walk us through those really innovative technologies that can be leveraged to really move faster with achieving our nutrition goals. So, but before I give the floor to Dr. Racine, I want to invite some countries, partner countries, that are part of this project to kind of give their country specifics. So I will start with Benin first, avec Dr Nestor Adjovi, s'il est dans la salle. Dr Nestor est dans la salle. Prière de venir ici et donner ta présentation. And yeah. Dr. Nestor Adjovi is from the Benin National Agricultural Research Body. Thank you so much. Welcome, Dr. Nestor.
Bonjour. Mon nom, comme il a dit, c'est Nestor Adjovi. Je suis chercheur à l'Institut national des recherches agricoles du Bénin. Je représente ici le Bénin, évidemment. Et je voudrais très rapidement nous parler un peu du contexte national au Bénin. Il faut reconnaître que pendant longtemps, ce qui nous a manqué, c'est un peu la volonté politique. La volonté politique, évidemment, dans les discours et dans les paroles, on en a eu beaucoup. Mais la volonté politique dans la mise en place des actions concrètes, c'est ce dont nous avons beaucoup souffert. Mais il faut quand même reconnaître que ces dernières années, même si nous n'avons pas atteint ce que nous voulions avoir, des pas ont été quand même faits, même si ces pas sont encore très petits. Ces dernières années, à travers le programme d'action du gouvernement, il a été manifesté une volonté de mieux prendre en main le secteur agricole et d'y apporter tout ce dont il a besoin pour son développement et pour son épanouissement, évidemment en prenant en charge et en impliquant tous les acteurs à tous les niveaux. C'est dans ce cadre que le pays a été, j'allais dire, découpé en plusieurs zones que nous appelons des pôles de développement agricole. Et donc, des structures ont été créées pour s'occuper de ces différents pôles de développement agricole. Parallèlement, au niveau des divers ministères, nous avons eu la création des directions, des systèmes d'information que nous appelons des DSI. Et donc, le ministère de l'Agriculture aussi a eu la création de sa direction des systèmes d'information pour s'occuper de la digitalisation de l'agriculture. C'est là aussi que pour la première fois, les différents acteurs ont commencé à s'habituer à l'utilisation des outils digitaux pour travailler dans le secteur agricole et donc non seulement pour conduire des travaux, mais aussi pour développer un certain nombre de produits capables de révolutionner les choses. Au niveau de la DSI du MAEP, c'est-à-dire du ministère en charge de l'agriculture, il y a un certain nombre de plateformes qui ont été mises en place. Je ne vais pas revenir ici sur la liste des différentes plateformes, nous avons environ une vingtaine qui sont mises en place d'une manière ou d'une autre avec des acteurs différents, que l'on soit du secteur agricole, je vais dire de la production agricole directe, ou bien que l'on soit du secteur de l'élevage, ou qu'on soit de la pêche, etc. Donc, il y a différents domaines, donc des plateformes qui ont été mises en place et qui ont commencé à vraiment réfléchir sur comment est-ce que dans ces différents secteurs, il faut utiliser les outils digitaux pour atteindre un certain nombre d'objectifs qui ont été fixés, ou bien que les acteurs se sont fixés pour développer ces choses. Ces plateformes fonctionnent tant bien que mal, mais il faut reconnaître que le domaine étant récent dans notre pays, cette affaire a commencé il n'y a pas plus de 5 ans maintenant, et donc les capacités pour gérer cet ensemble de plateformes sont suffisamment réduites. Donc le train est en marche, mais il y a encore beaucoup de difficultés pour régler ces choses. Mais en fait, pour servir à la prise de décision efficace, pour lever les différentes contraintes auxquelles le secteur agricole et ses acteurs sont confrontés, évidemment à la satisfaction des besoins, les données collectées doivent évidemment être analysées et retourner dans le système pour pouvoir alimenter la décision et pour pouvoir alimenter les systèmes qui ont été mis en place. Et c'est en cela que ma structure, l'Institut national des recherches agricoles du Bénin, est directement connectée à la DSI, à la Direction des systèmes de l'information, pour travailler, pour conduire un certain nombre d'études transversales qui permettent aux décideurs et qui permettent aux acteurs de se mirer, de regarder dans un miroir et de regarder évidemment d'où est-ce qu'ils viennent et où est-ce qu'ils vont, et en même temps de voir de quelle manière, de manière consensuelle, des décisions efficaces pour le secteur peuvent être prises. En fait, nous avons un peu comme rôle ou comme mandat de faire de la veille stratégique, d'évaluer les impacts, et ces choses ne sont pas faciles si on n'a pas vraiment accès à ces outils digitaux qui existent aujourd'hui. Et donc, notre attente à travers notre participation à ce projet, c'est de pouvoir d'abord se renforcer nous-mêmes et d'aider à renforcer les autres acteurs pour que vraiment cette révolution puisse avoir lieu chez nous. Voilà très brièvement, sans aller vraiment dans les détails, ce que je pourrais vous dire. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Dr. Adjovi, for this opportunity on how really the National Agricultural Research Systems really are being connected to the digital departments to really leverage the innovations in order to move ahead with the nutrition agenda of the country, especially Benin. I want to invite Professor Amos from Ghana, if he's in the room, to kindly join and give us the context of Ghana. Thank you. Yeah, Professor Amos is from the University of Ghana.
Thank you very much. Dr. Osman Badin, Executive Chair, Academia 2063. Honorable Dr. Olivier Kamana, representative of the Rwandan government. Dr. Babafemi Ole Willow of Power, and ladies and gentlemen, would like to use this opportunity to express on behalf of the University of Ghana, and therefore Ghana, our gratitude to Academia 2063 and the other partners for giving us this opportunity to contribute to a very important project in DERPIn. If not all, most of you are aware that Ghana was born on the 6th of March 1957 and is located on the west coast of Africa. It is a relatively small and also young country with a population of about 32 million. So although young and small, Ghana is recognized by its peers as a leader when it comes to issues of constitutional multi-party democracy, but also her efforts to address malnutrition, especially food insecurity. And so politically, Ghana, since independence, has expressed commitment to addressing some of these challenges related to food. And this has resulted in the development and implementation of various legislations, regulations, policies, strategies, and programs. Some of the recent sectorial governmental policies include the Accelerated Agricultural Growth and Development Strategy. This was first developed in 1996. In 2002, the Ghanaian government developed the Food and Agri Sector Development Policy, Fast Step 1. This was revised in 2007. In 2010, Ghana developed the Ghana Shared Growth and Development Agenda. This again was revised in 2014. Since 2017, the government of Ghana has been implementing a number of flagship programs. The Planting for Food and Jobs program, Planting for Export, Rearing for Food, Rearing for Export, but also One District, One Factory, and One Village, One Dam initiatives. Obviously, those of us from within are aware that there are some challenges. Yes, challenges remain. Food insecurity remains a challenge in the country. If you take out the 2020 Ghana Comprehensive Food Security and Vulnerability Analysis Report, it indicated that about 12% of Ghanaians were food insecure. This was conducted in 2020 pre-COVID. When COVID hit, a rapid assessment was done, and these found nearly 64% of Ghanaians, due to the shock from COVID, being food insecure. What this tells us is there are issues of resilience or lack thereof in the country. Some of the challenges beleaguering our food systems and some relating to resilience or lack thereof were identified as part of the United Nations Food Systems Summit Dialogues, but also other initiatives like the FSTIP program that Academia 2063 and others contributed to. And so those engagements made it possible for Ghana as a country to comprehensively identify a number of food systems challenges. Some of the challenges were linked to resilience. And so, for example, it was made clear that Ghana is highly vulnerable, just as other African countries, to the global climate change challenges, and is not ready to respond to those challenges. From a list of 181 countries, Ghana was ranked 119 when it comes to readiness to respond to the current climate challenges. Those of us, again, from Ghana are aware of increasing uncertainty relating to rainfall events. If you look at regions in the northern part of Ghana where my colleague Nathaniel Sulevana is based, they are prone to very erratic climatic happenings, water stress, but also sometimes floods. Heavy deforestation, loss of arable land due to desertification, illegal mining, and harmful agronomic practices are contributing to biodiversity loss, but also habitat loss. And so stakeholders in Ghana agree that these are important challenges that need to be addressed. The stakeholders also agree that there are a number of key government sectors, ministries, departments, and agencies that should take the lead in addressing this. And so our Ministry of Land and Natural Resources, Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology, and Innovation, Ministry of Food and Agric, our supra-ministerial agency, the National Development Planning Commission, were identified as key government actors that should take the lead in addressing food system challenges, including those related to resilience. And I should say, Ghana as a country is desirous and committed to addressing some of these challenges. Ghana just joined 2 other countries to implement the West African Food System Resilience Program. This is funded by World Bank with a funding envelope of about 100 million to be implemented between now and 2030. Also, as part of the Food Systems Summit dialogues I talked about, as a country, Ghana committed to addressing its total food system challenges. I would just focus on some of the commitments that are relevant to resilience or related to resilience. So out of 17 commitments, quite a number of them were focused on resilience, and so one of them aimed to reduce food loss and waste, increase the production of climate-resilient varieties of diverse vegetables, legumes, fruits, and biofortified staples. By 2030, Ghana is committing to achieving seed security, breed security, land security for Ghanaian farmers, especially for women and youth. The government is also committed to ensuring that government plans, government policies, government strategies are climate compliant, risk-informed, conflict-sensitive, shock responsive. They are costed and multi-sectorial and are aligned with very concrete target. The government also is committed to increasing investment in data surveillance and early warning systems, drawing on digital and innovative approaches. And so, as you can see from this background, there is a resonance or concurrence with what this current project, DERPIn, seeks to do. And so, as far as we are concerned, it would seem to us that DERPIn was designed for Ghana. And so Ghana as a country is very much committed to contributing to the implementation of this very innovative project. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Amos, for giving the experience of Ghana. Very interesting case studies, planting for export. And yeah, thank you so much. I think we have in the room Professor Charles Jumbe, who is from the Center for Agricultural Research and Development. Professor Jumbe, please join and give your remarks. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. I'll talk about Malawi. Some of us think Malawi is part of South Africa. Others think that Malawi is part of Nigeria. Malawi is somewhere in the Southern Africa region, which is bordered to the north by Tanzania, to the east by Zambia, then the southern part by Mozambique. It's a small country, but with a large population of 18 million. The space is about 118 square kilometers. It's a small country, but highly populated. Malawi is a democratic country, peaceful. It has been peaceful ever since we got independence. We have internal fights, but that are not actually leading to bloodshed. They're just internal. People just talk. These are cold wars that happen in most of the countries. So we are an agricultural country. We depend on agriculture for our livelihoods. About 30% of our GDP is driven from agriculture, mainly exporting raw products, tobacco, tea, sugar. But most of our families that are producing, 70% of what we produce is produced by smallholder farmers that are scattered in the rural areas, cultivating very small pieces of land. The system in Malawi that everyone, even though that are working, everyone claims to be a farmer. You have a small piece of land, maybe which has 20 ridges, you call yourself a farmer. And oftentimes we only produce for domestic consumption. The export commodities are basically those that I've mentioned: tea, coffee, a little coffee, mainly tobacco. So Malawi has been faced with a number of challenges relating to its dependence on agriculture, and also on rainfall, with very limited capacity to do irrigation. Although Malawi has the largest, maybe the third largest lake in the southern Africa, but we don't do a lot more irrigation because of the poor investment opportunities that are there and policies that are not actually promoting irrigation in our country. So agriculture has been faced, the sector has been faced with a lot of problems. We have a problem of micronutrient deficiencies that are also very prone, and government is taking steps to try to address that. We have problems of land shortages, especially access to land by women is very restricted in our country. So there have been policies that have been implemented to try to address that, which has a problem because of a cultural background. And also we have high poverty rate. People are very poor in our countries, such that those that are called farmers cannot access a bag of fertilizer to use in their farms. So what government has been doing is to support these farmers, smallholder farmers, with the input support program, which we call fertilizer support program, which has been running for many years. The initial plan was that when farmers start using fertilizer, they will be able to produce enough, and from that enough, they will be able to sell, and from the sales, they will be able to buy fertilizers by themselves. But this has not been the case. People still rely on government to provide them with fertilizer every year in, year out, such that if government has fought it in terms of procurement of fertilizer, then you find that there will be hunger and food insecurity in the country. Of late, we have seen cycles of floods, climate-related hazards and risks in the country. Almost every 5 years, we experience either drought or flooding, and that has been a challenge for many years. Now, through UNDP, we have been implementing a program where we are using, government has installed automatic weather systems across the country so that it can provide, on-time weather information, which is shared to farmers using electronic systems. This has been an initiative that has been supported by UNDP and what we call it participatory. It's called PIXA. Maybe some of you are familiar with this. It's called Participatory Integrated Climate Services for Agriculture. This project uses normally historical data. Before the season starts, farmers meet and they look at the trend in terms of weather, and using that information, they are able to make, with the information that we get predictions from the weather stations, they are able to make decisions in terms of what they can grow in that particular season. So through that program, farmers are able to, to decide what they should grow in what particular season. So this has been a running program for quite some time. Now, we, as Center for Cultural Research and Development, we came in because of the support by USAID. There was notable that, what was noted at that time was that policies were developed without evidence. So the Center for Cultural Research and Development was set up in 1996, and I was one of the first research fellows at that particular institution, where we conduct research to feed into government policy formation process. Our role is to generate the evidence for various policies that are made in the government. But also one other aspect that was identified at that particular time was that there was limited capacity in government to do policy analysis within the government systems itself. So part of the center, we also conduct training. That training, we train economists, planners in various ministries in terms of policy analysis. We also conduct research. Our role is actually to conduct research that help to provide information for government to take decisions. There have been studies that looked at informal cross-border trade that happens between Malawi and other countries to see how much government is losing and how much is actually people are getting out of the country and what is coming in. So that has been happening for some time with the funding by USAID, but that stopped. Now, as a center, we are a think tank for government. We are used to develop policy. Right now, we reviewed the national cultural policy that was developed that covered 2016 to 2021. We have a review that we did. Then right now we are developing the new policy, which will cover from 2023 to 2063. We are aligning it with the CADAP processes so that it is actually aligned, even the indicators are aligned to in the CADAP process. So as an institute, as an institution, and as a think tank, we are used by government to provide that type of information to government. And we welcome this project because it fits into what we are doing, because we are, as an institution, in the BR team, where we are doing bionic review for government in terms of what we have achieved under CADAP, what have been the challenges. So we welcome this project. It will fit into what we already do, the nutrition intervention that we are doing, and also the digital innovations that we are promoting, that government is promoting through that PIXA program that I mentioned about. So we welcome this this project as an institution that will fit into generating proper indicators which you can actually monitor. As we also monitor, we report for the achievement under the CADAP. So it is very well aligned to what government is already doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Charles Jumbe, for refreshing us on some geography of Malawi and taking us through the challenges and the opportunity that you see on leveraging digital tools to really promote the government policies on nutrition. We have in the room Dr. Isaac Shinyeka from the Economic Policy Research Center. Welcome, Dr. Isaac. Okay.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, that's better. That's better. Yeah, the story doesn't seem to deviate a lot from what the others have said regarding the incidence of some of the acts of nature in terms of affecting food security via climate changes. We experience in Uganda a lot of the incidence of some of these activities like floods, like droughts. They are actually increasing to the extent like last year we had a very big problem in the northeastern part of Uganda called Karamoja, where cattle keepers mainly live. So the incidence has increased. Farmers are the masses of nature. Of course, having painted that, there are also government efforts. I work for the Economic Policy Research Center, where we do policy research for government and advise on different fronts. There are institutional arrangements for that. We have an organization called NARO, National Cultural Research Organization, with different regional subgroups to be able to capture data from those places, analyze it, and feed into the national system. So having painted what is happening at that level, let me come to what's government doing about, apart from putting the institutions in place to handle climate change and nutrition issues. Right now, as we talk, we have the National Development Plan 3, it's a five-year plan, which moved away from the normal sectoral sort of planning, like I said, the sector of agriculture, to what we call program-based planning, where you bring in all individuals, all institutions that affect agriculture and others. And we are pursuing a program called agro-industrialization program that has people in trade there, that has people regarding drugs, weather, and all these come together to be able to respond to that. And regarding nutrition policies, there are quite a number of policies in place. Some need to be updated. I won't go into the details of that. But basically, we look at adequate food and nutrition as a human right. And it is anything to do with the production of food is of strategic nature and the resources for the country. And all policies, like the fertilizer policies, the irrigation policies, the insurance policies, some of them are really, really weak in nature, like insurance for the small farmers. Irrigation is really struggling, but I think some efforts are being put into place. But what I note about all these efforts is that they are disjointed, they are individual in nature. You have this institution trying to do something, the other one trying to do something, and you don't have a concerted sort of approach, which I think this project will play a very significant role in terms of informing this entire process. There are some programs. Uganda has a counter plan for global food security as a strategy. Uganda is running a program called Climate Smart Agriculture to tackle climate change related issues. But now the problem is how timely can this be done? Because sometimes the information to be able to feed into this process is historic in nature, and there's no projection to be able to deal with this kind of thing. There's another one called under the National Development Plan 3, Uganda Multi-Sectoral Food Security and Nutrition Project. All these and other many efforts are meant to deal with the challenges of climate change and how it affects food and nutrition. But they are not concerted in nature. Bringing institutions that are addressing the same thing together to be able to address the problem is what we are facing. The beauty is Uganda collects quite a lot of data which can help in terms of meeting some of the things. When you look at a household survey data that computes poverty figures, delves into even the micronutrients we're talking about. So this to me is a plus. And what am I trying to say in brief? We, like any other person or another country in Africa, are facing the same challenges. We have some institutions in place, but we have not had that ability to front our response in a concerted way. And I believe that engaging policymakers, I believe that with the data of the data sets available, we will be able through this project be able to get a common front to be able to achieve this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Isaac, for the wonderful remarks. The next speaker is Dr. Sheikh Sadibou Farr. It's coming from Senegal. We invite you, Dr. Fall, we are eager to hear about the Senegalese experience. We had the wonderful work that's being done by Conseil National de Développement de la Nutrition in Senegal, which is now becoming a case study in Africa, especially South. So we are really eager to hear about the experience. How have you done in terms of leveraging research and digital technologies? Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you very much. Bonjour tout le monde. Donc, bon, je vais un peu imiter mon collègue. Bonjour tout le monde. Bonjour. Ah, voilà. Donc, en tout cas, moi, c'est Cher Sadi Boufal. Je suis chercheur économiste à l'ISRA. L'ISRA, c'est l'Institut sénégalais de recherche agricole. C'est l'équivalent de l'INRAB au Bénin. Et voilà. Donc, nous sommes un institut public de recherche sous la tutelle du ministère de l'Agriculture et de l'Équipement rural au Sénégal et de la souveraineté alimentaire. Bon, déjà dire notre joie, notre satisfaction de rejoindre ce consortium à travers ce projet DERPIn, je pense qu'il est dans l'air du temps. Parce qu'en réalité, je pense que la révolution du numérique est en marche et je pense qu'il ne faut pas louper le train. Jusqu'à hier, je lisais dans la presse sénégalaise, il y avait une sorte d'atelier technique que le ministère du Développement territorial était en train de faire aussi sur le même thème, c'est-à-dire le numérique. Donc personne ne veut louper le train du numérique. Maintenant, pourquoi aussi ce projet, moi je le trouve très intéressant et important? Parce qu'en fait, si vous regardez bien, le numérique crée une sorte de démocratie. Parce qu'on parle aussi de genre. Mais en fait, quand on parle de genre, il y a les femmes, il y a les jeunes, mais tout le monde utilise le numérique, même dans les villages les plus reculés au Sénégal où il n'y a pas d'électricité. Les gens ont leur téléphone portable qui charge à travers des batteries, avec de la connexion Internet. Donc pour dire qu'en fait, le numérique, c'est quelque chose qui est démocratique, qui inclut tout le monde, c'est inclusif, donc qu'il va falloir, je pense, intégrer dans tous les secteurs, notamment l'agriculture. Bon, j'ai un peu dérogé à la règle parce que je vais parler de géographie sénégalaise. Bon, le Sénégal, c'est le pays le plus à l'ouest du continent africain. Le Sénégal aussi est champion d'Afrique de football. Donc, vous pouvez rapidement nous retrouver. Et j'espère qu'à la fin du projet aussi, on sera champion d'Afrique du numérique aussi dans l'agriculture. Donc, plus sérieusement aussi, l'agriculture sénégalaise, comme l'a souligné mes collègues précédemment, en fait, c'est une agriculture qui est en proie aussi au changement climatique, parce qu'on a une agriculture majoritairement pluviale, et qui parle de pluviométrie aussi, parle de changement climatique. Le collègue qui m'a précédé a parlé de sécheresse ou d'inondation qui arrivent assez souvent dans nos zones agroécologiques, dans nos systèmes. Donc l'agriculture, il y a aussi de l'agriculture irriguée qu'on fait au Sénégal. Donc c'est un pays aussi qui a un fort potentiel et une diversité agricole, 6 zones agroécologiques. Et aussi l'agriculture occupe la majorité de la population, comme dans beaucoup d'autres pays africains, c'est-à-dire plus de 50% de la population. Donc qu'est-ce que je voulais dire en plus? Déjà, toujours pour rappeler, il y a 2 semaines, je participais à un panel. C'était organisé par le secteur privé sénégalais, qui s'appelait le Forum du premier emploi. Parce qu'effectivement, les jeunes aussi. Et lors de ce forum, ce qui m'avait le plus marqué, le numérique était ressorti comme point essentiel dans l'agriculture pour ceux qui voulaient faire de l'entrepreneuriat. Parce que les gens se sont rendus compte que le secteur dans lequel il y avait beaucoup plus de marge, de potentiel pour faire de l'entrepreneuriat, c'était l'agriculture. Et les jeunes de maintenant sont plus orientés dans le numérique. Donc il fallait intégrer nécessairement le numérique et la digitalisation dans nos chaînes de valeur. Bon, parce qu'aussi le numérique pourrait permettre de résoudre un vieux problème de l'économie, c'est-à-dire l'asymétrie d'information au niveau des chaînes de valeur qui existent entre les acteurs des chaînes de valeur, notamment les producteurs, des producteurs jusqu'aux consommateurs. Donc les applications possibles sont multiples au Sénégal à travers ce projet qu'on pourrait peut-être expérimenter. Il y a le système d'information des marchés pour les prix, parce que c'est un des grands drivers des chaînes de valeur, le facteur prix. Comme je l'ai dit aussi tantôt, c'est une agriculture en proie au changement climatique, donc aussi les systèmes d'alerte précoce. Je pense que le système AGWA, que je connais plus ou moins, pourrait permettre d'anticiper, de faire des prédictions pour permettre aux producteurs. Et il y a des initiatives qui existent, hein, mais je pense que c'est à améliorer. Je pense dans le cadre de ce projet aussi, ça gagnerait à être amélioré, à être mis à l'échelle dans d'autres pays. Et aussi le commerce. Le marché, donc je pense pourrait être, en tout cas ce projet pourrait permettre en tout cas à tous les acteurs des chaînes de valeur, partant du producteur jusqu'au consommateur, d'intégrer le numérique, disons, dans ces chaînes de valeur. Donc je ne vais pas être long, donc je vais m'en arrêter là et rester à la disposition de tout le monde s'il y a des questions de clarification. Juste un dernier point, sur le point politique, sur le plan politique global économique, il y a la stratégie numérique 2025 du Sénégal et je pense que les travaux qui seront menés dans le cadre de ce projet pourraient être versés dans cette stratégie macro du Sénégal, stratégie 2025. Donc j'ai le sentiment que l'agriculture est un peu laissée en rade, donc d'où la pertinence, je pense, de pouvoir y contribuer à travers les travaux de ce projet. Donc, merci beaucoup pour l'invitation et j'espère qu'à la fin, nous serons encore champions d'Afrique. Merci bien.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sadi Boufa. Yeah, you're going to be all champions. Thank you. So, very interesting conversation. If there is anyone who has any question or any input in the room, I would invite any question. But let's go gender. We had really speakers, but there is in the room Dr. Solange, who has been really at the forefront of really implementing some of the government policies on nutrition, especially targeting the school-going children, the programs like 1 egg per child, and the programs are like 1 cup of milk per child. Dr. Solange, I invite you to have 1 minute to take the audience through the experience of Rwanda, because though Rwanda is not part of the DERPIn project, but a lot we can learn. The PS said that we were lucky that Rwanda is hosting PAF in academia. So we hope that after this project, Rwanda will be part of the next part of the project. Dr. Solange, any thought about the experience of Rwanda on nutrition?
Just here. That's a surprise.
Yes.
So let's see if I pass the test. Because there's also a surprise. All distinguished delegates or protocol observed, good morning. I guess mine is just to tell you, talk from the heart. I have not prepared anything, but I'm going to share just a testimony of what we have been doing. Just like other countries that have been telling us their case studies, Rwanda also relies on agriculture. 63% of our population are involved in agriculture. But we are moving more and more in actually being intentional in talking about not only agriculture, but agriculture / nutrition and food security nexus. So we are not anymore cultivating or rearing animals for the sake of it, but what do we get out of it? And because of that, one of the KPI that Rwanda has by 2024 is to reduce our stunting rate among children from 0 to 5 years down to 19%. Currently, we are standing at 33%, but we need to lower down our levels at least at 19%. with the aim to actually eliminate it altogether, and it's really doable. So some of the initiatives that we are doing are kind of two-pronged. One is to mainstream inexpensive animal source proteins such as eggs, whereby we are mainstreaming eggs through the school feeding. We are mainstreaming the 1 cup of milk per child, again through the program, the school feeding program, which is now mandatory for all children going to school from kindergarten all the way to 12 years of basic education. Everybody is supposed to eat at school. And we also are moving forward with actually being able to see how we can mainstream the powdered fish. We have here in this country the small fish called sambaza, the Limnotrichum iodon, which is abundant in our largest lake Kivu. And we are working through the National Center for Early Development, NCDA, to see how we can actually process those small fish and make them affordable and available to the mothers, both at the national centers of early childhood development or home-based ECDs, because we have two versions of that. Concerning the agriculture part, we also have in Rwanda an initiative that was launched by Right Honorable Prime Minister to have at least three fruit trees per household, so that every child will be having access to fruits. Just ad libitum, if I can say that. And we have been developing under the Ministry of Agriculture a very big orchard, fruit orchard in Eastern Province, whereby we are having almost, I think, close to 2,000 hectares. Of course, when you say big, that's according to the scale of our countryside. You cannot compare to Senegal or any other big country, but in our context, I think that would be the largest fruit orchard that we have developed, where we have cultivated avocado, mangoes, tomato trees, and others, for us to just mainstream the consumption of fruits at I should say easily. So price should not be prohibitive from having access to those vitamins that we usually enjoy from fresh fruits. Coupled with that, so when we are talking about access to eggs, access to milk, access to fish, there are some projects that some of them are bilateral, some of them are national, that are actually aiming at availability and affordability of those animal source foods. So we have projects that are geared towards intensification of and modernization of dairy farming. We have a project that is actually two projects that are helping us to mainstream household chickens and pigs and goats and sheep, called PRISM, supported by IFAD as well as Enabel, which is a Belgian institution for development. And we are also launching this March a similar project that is geared toward modernizing aquaculture and fisheries, so that we are able to get the most we can out of our natural resources and make them available and affordable. I guess that's what I can share. And looking at the digitally enabled resilience and nutritional policy innovation, maybe I'll get my answer from the next presentation from Dr. Catherine. You cannot talk about that without having a solid database. And so when you are talking about digitally enabled resilience, probably you are going to also talk, I'm looking forward to how are we going to have a a database for all these countries. So how is it going to be working? Is it going to be isolated case studies from the countries, or there is going to be a centralized database from which actually all of us African countries we can learn? And maybe expand, when the time comes, those tools so that we learn. We are really moving towards a knowledge-based agriculture. There's no doubt about it. And you cannot do that without having a solid database of what it is we are facing and how we can actually circumvent it. I submit, Mr. Moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Solange. You did very well at this impromptu speech, but it was really very enlightening. I thank you so much. Yeah, and for your thought about the Rwandan experience. Here in the room, we have heard about the experience of Rwanda on digital technologies and on Isoko and other digital technologies. Lilian, do you have something to say? How we are leveraging those digital technologies in agriculture? You have 1 minute, and then we can hear about the civil society. We heard about the research community. The next step will be the civil society. Lilian, I can bring the mic closer to you.
Thank you, Seraphine. I'm Lilian Dungu from Minagri, from the Digital Office. And the Digital Office is an initiative of MinICT and RISA embedded within key ministries with the purpose of supporting the digital transformation. And at Minagri, this is guided by a national digital agriculture strategy. And it's a relatively new office, but in the last 2 years, there has been a lot of progress in strengthening the infrastructure. And right now, the priority is on creating a unified and cohesive digital systems transformation. Specifically, the office is working on building systems that digitize government services, but there is also a huge focus on farmer-facing services. So developing a unified platform that allows farmers to access services from one gateway instead of from different sources, and bringing together both government and private sector-led innovations and services for farmers together. And this is one of the initiatives that is also going to streamline the way that information is structured and delivered to farmers. And this is also taking advantage of innovations in technologies, artificial intelligence, satellites, for example, in collaboration with academia to strengthen yield predictions, and with RSA also to develop robust agricultural monitoring systems. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lilian, for your insights. The next on the agenda, we are going to hear about the civil society or partners of farmers' organization in the region. We start with Mrs. Hirari, Mr. Hirari, sorry, from the East African Farmers Federation. Mr. Hirari from the East African Farmers Federation. Welcome, Hirari.
Yep, thank you very much. I think Hillary is a name that is shared between either gender. Yeah, so my name is Hilary Cheruyot. I work for the Eastern Africa Farmers Federation, EAFF, which is a member of the Pan-African Farmers Organization. I think this project comes at the verge of a period where the global community talks about the main challenges that have existed. Of course, on issues of COVID-19 challenges, climate change, we've also had wars around the Ukrainian wars, which is now affecting a lot of the smallholder farmers. And I think I would want to just share with you what EFF has always done around the food system security. So we have actually participated on the different UN food security summits, of course trying to bring together the stakeholders to discuss how best the smallholder farmers can really adapt and mitigate to issues of food security. We do a lot of advocacy and lobbying, of course, through partnerships with the research institutions, and I'm happy because we have the different universities here, academia also doing a lot in terms of digitization. I just would want to share with us, looking at the digitally enabled resilience and nutritional policy innovation project. So the Eastern Africa Farmers Federation has been implementing a project that was dubbed e-granary, and I'm happy because I've seen the immediate former Secretary General for Imbaraga, which is one of our members, of course, based here in Rwanda. So this is a digital platform, actually, that has sorted challenges around the farmers for access to markets, finances, insurance, and even certified inputs. So this is a platform that has really bridged that gap. Now, looking at this project, the DERPIn project. So we see a lot of opportunities. I'm happy because there is a component on youth and gender, which, in different forums around the food security, it has really come out to be one of the areas that we really need to work on. So we see this project also ensuring that there is an enhanced policy environment, of course, to bring together, gender, participatory, inclusive policies, to be incorporated and integrated on the national action plans. We also see this project to generate the different digital tools, of course, to bridge the gaps on food security. So I think that is what I would say for now. So AF is committed to really participate and support the implementation of this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hilary, for your insights on the work of EFF and plans towards really leveraging digital platforms. The next speaker is Tinashe Chavunduka. Tinashe from Sakau. Welcome. For the interest of time, I will ask our speakers to kind of go straight to the point. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Program Director. I will try to honor that since the instruction is starting with me, so I will have to do exactly that. So yes, my name is Tinashe Chavunduka, and I work for the Southern African Confederation of Agricultural Unions, commonly known as SACAU. The first thing I'm going to say is probably to say the introduction of this project is very timely, and I think the future is digital. So the earlier we start working on that, the better. But I just have a couple of points that I think are going to help to maybe enhance the efforts this project is going to assist with in Africa. So the first one is that we need to, as we are working on this project, try to make sure that there's a balance between agricultural development policies and social protection of policies. In Southern Africa, hunger is actually increasing despite that we have very good policies, and governments are making a lot of effort in subsidies and all that to buy fertilizers, seed, and other things for the farmers. But it looks like the opposite is actually happening. So we need to probably look at how we balance social protection policies vis-a-vis agricultural development policies. Then the second point will be on lack of record keeping, especially by smallholder farmers, to say how this project can actually come in and enhance that, because we see that maybe if if you don't keep records of what you are doing, it will be very difficult to make efforts to improve on what you are doing. Then the third point will be on backbone infrastructure. In Southern Africa, we are grappling with energy insecurity issues, with most countries actually experiencing load shedding all the time. So when we try to do this, it's digital. It will need the support of digital infrastructure that includes ICT infrastructure and also energy infrastructure. The fourth point will be on land tenure issues. I see that there's a component on gender and youth in the project. But what we are seeing in Southern Africa in general is that there are still issues to do with land tenure. How do we sort of try to put it in there in terms of making sure that we also have women owning land in their own right, and also youth moving into the agricultural space. So we'll need to look at how land tenure issues can also be part of this project. The second last point will be on man-made shocks like political instability. I say this because in Southern Africa, Professor Jumbe mentioned that they are a democratic country in Malawi, but we know that there are countries that are not so. We are seeing a lot of emasculation of democratic spaces in those countries. I say this because it seems like it's out of context, but you find that everything is connected to everything. Political instability can cause a lot of problems in what we are trying to achieve in this project as well. Then the last point I'm going to say is that Sakau see the value proposition of this project as making things to happen. We have been having policies, like I said at the beginning, but the major issue for me is that these policies are not always supported by implementing sort of programs and the associated budgets to make things happen. So we see an opportunity here, Sakau, to say maybe this is our opportunity to start making things to happen in Southern Africa. I submit, moderator.
Thank you so much, Tinashe, for the great insight on the work of Sakau and what you see as really potential challenges towards achievement of the expected output. Without further ado, I would invite Monsieur Dieudonné, Monsieur Dieudonné, please, l'autre nom tu vas le dire. Welcome.
Ok, merci. Ok, merci. Moi, c'est Dieudonné Pakotogo. Je suis chargé de programme au niveau du secrétariat exécutif du ROPA. Le ROPA, c'est le réseau des organisations paysannes et des producteurs agricoles de l'Afrique de l'Ouest. Alors, la présidence actuellement est assurée par Ibrahima Koulibaly, qui est du Mali. Alors, il faut dire que pour le ROPA, c'est plus de 20 millions de producteurs agricoles. Et nous avons donc des plateformes au niveau donc, de la région ouest africaine, 13 plateformes. Et nous avons aussi donc des femmes, un collège des femmes et un collège donc des jeunes qui sont engagés. Alors, il faut dire que pour ce qui concerne donc le numérique, il est clair que le numérique est un levier important de développement socio-économique des femmes et des jeunes dans la région ouest africaine. Et cela est clair, ça limitait un peu la question d'isolement et pour les jeunes ruraux et pour les femmes. Et aussi, cela a contribué en fait donc à avoir suffisamment d'informations pour ce qui concerne le secteur agricole. Mais toujours est-il que, bien que dans les zones rurales, beaucoup donc, de petits producteurs ont accès à des technologies, notamment donc, les téléphones. Mais la question d'accessibilité aux smartphones et puis donc aux laptops reste en fait donc limitée. Et aussi, on constate que la question d'alphabétisation et les outils donc adaptés pour ce qui concerne donc le numérique crée toujours donc un fossé limitant en fait donc l'accès des petits producteurs à des technologies donc vraiment adaptées qui vont leur permettre en fait donc d'être plus résilients. Et pour ce qui concerne donc le repas, nous sommes convaincus que ce projet contribuera en fait donc à réduire en fait donc ce fossé donc numérique d'accessibilité donc aux facteurs donc de production, à des questions d'information. Et nous sommes vraiment ravis que le repas soit impliqué à travers donc sa plateforme régionale, le PAFO, et aussi donc à travers donc les plateformes nationales, le Bénin qui est représenté ici, il y a la plateforme nationale du Bénin qui est là, il y a la plateforme nationale du Ghana qui est représentée, et aussi il y a la plateforme nationale donc du Sénégal qui est représentée. Et pour nous, nous n'avons pas le choix pour le repas. Nous sommes obligés de nous investir fortement dans ce projet parce que pour nous, c'est un devoir, parce que nous avons besoin aussi donc des évidences et des acquis donc de ce projet pour alimenter le plaidoyer au niveau donc régional. Et donc nous allons nous engager auprès donc de tous les partenaires à nous investir durablement et aussi à capitaliser tout ce qu'il y a comme bonne pratique qui va nous servir en fait donc pour le plaidoyer. Et aussi, notre souhait que d'autres pays, actuellement, c'est vrai qu'au niveau donc des plateformes du repas, on n'a que 3 pays, mais notre souhait c'est que ce projet y ait une seconde phase qui implique donc d'autres pays en termes donc d'accès au numérique. Et comme je l'ai dit, au nom donc du président du repas, nous souhaitons donc à tous les partenaires en fait donc que ce projet donc soit vraiment très très fructueux et qu'on puisse avoir donc des éléments d'information pour le plaidoyer pour l'Afrique de l'Ouest. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup, Doné, pour tes propos et attentes sur ce projet. The next speaker is Mr. Henri Dabeto, qui nous vient du Bénin. Henri, okay. À vous la parole.
Bonjour, chers organisateurs et chers participants. Mon nom, c'est Henri Dabeto. Je suis le technicien qui assiste le président de la PENOPA. C'est la plateforme nationale des organisations paysannes et des producteurs agricoles du Bénin. Nous avons plusieurs autres organisations qui sont membres de la plateforme et nos actions vont surtout dans le sens de la promotion des exploitants, des OP, je parle des organisations paysannes. Nous avons accueilli ce projet avec beaucoup de joie parce que une lutte que nous faisons, c'est l'accès aux outils numériques parce que les paysans, disons les agriculteurs, ont besoin d'être informés des problèmes qui vont survenir dans le temps. Par exemple, quand il y a les infestations, aujourd'hui, dans d'autres pays, il y a des outils numériques qui, avec des drones, par exemple, qui suivaient les champs. On reçoit sur le portable, le téléphone portable, les alertes quand il y a des problèmes qui vont survenir. Et nous attendons que les innovations qui sortiront de ce projet puissent adresser les problèmes que vivent les exploitants agricoles que nous sommes en train de gérer au plan national. Au Bénin, il y a déjà un début d'innovation qu'on peut encourager, qu'on peut développer. Donc, je voudrais dire que le Bénin accueille ce projet avec beaucoup de joie, espérant que nos agriculteurs vont en profiter, surtout que notre pays fait partie des partenaires. Nous allons espérer que ça soit fructueux pour nos agriculteurs. Au nom de M. Lawani Aruna, qui est également le deuxième vice-président de ROPA. Je voudrais dire merci aux organisateurs et on est ensemble. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Marie Dabeto. Comme l'a bien dit Dr Sadibou Farr, personne ne veut louper le train du digital. Pendant qu'on est là, on nous parle de la nutrition. Il y a un bon café qui vous est offert un peu dehors. So if you need to help yourself, there is a good coffee outside and the fresh juice. So you can just step out and grab your coffee and join the room. If you, yeah. But as we continue now, the next speaker is Mr. Nathaniel Sulemana from Ghana. Nathaniel Sulemana from Ghana. Over to you. As I made a remark to the previous speaker, try to go straight to the point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here as the National Coordinator for the Farmers Organizations Network in Ghana. Bring greetings from my president of the platform, Dr. King David Amoa. Actually, we are very happy. In fact, we are a proud member of ROPA, and ROPA is also a proud member of PAFU. And so, in that chain, we are very happy to be part of this project. FONG, that is National Farmers Associations in Ghana, has about 400 farmer organizations, farmer groups, FBOs, which has a membership of over 20,000 smallholder farmers. And so our platform is very appropriate for the implementation of this project. And that is why we are happy to be part of the project. Ghana, indeed, has a population of 700 smallholder farmers. I mean, 7 million. 7 million smallholder farmers. That is about 22.5% of the population of Ghana. So the jobs of 22.5% of Ghanaians are hinged on projects like this. And so the success of projects of this nature is going to create livelihood for many people in Africa, including these 7 million peasant farmers or smallholder farmers in Ghana. And so we are bringing on board this number of farmers to this project. And indeed, it's about digitalizing the information that we have so that we can all share from our various case studies in our countries to be able to leverage on that and improve upon our way of doing farming. And so we think that this project is coming to help us to be able to soften the data that we have, maybe improve upon the way we collect the data, soften the data we have, and then innovate from that information. And so we are happy to be part of this project, and for 2 years, it is good enough. But we hope that at the end of the project, it will be scaled up for all of us to continue to benefit from it. Thank you very much for inviting me. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Nathaniel. And we hope that this project will deliver to your expectations. We also have our last speaker for this series of civil society. We have Monsieur Ousseinouka, qui nous vient du Sénégal. Yeah. So welcome.
Bonjour chers tous. Merci, chers organisateurs, de nous avoir invités à cette rencontre. Alors, je viens un peu vous faire part un peu des messages des producteurs sénégalais. Je suis un technicien chargé des programmes changement climatique au CNCR, donc le Conseil national de concertation et de coopération des ruraux. Alors ici, on aura parlé de résilience, de nutrition, de système alimentaire. Vous voyez bien que tous ces termes-là s'emboîtent. Et nous, au CNCR, nous agissons, nous misons sur les exploitations familiales. Parce que nous sommes conscients, et depuis toujours, que les exploitations familiales, donc les petits producteurs, nourrissent effectivement le pays. Mais en retour aussi, ils sont les plus exposés vis-à-vis des effets des changements climatiques. Donc c'est là où il faut rechercher les risques, c'est là où il faut rechercher les vulnérabilités. Et tout cela, donc quand on parlera du système alimentaire, cela implique donc tout le processus, à savoir depuis la production jusqu'à la consommation, en passant par le stockage, la transformation, la commercialisation et tout ça. Alors cela suppose des pratiques culturelles. Ces pratiques culturelles, certes, ont des influences sur la nutrition, parce que la production, en fonction de la manière dont moi je produis, ça influe sur le produit, donc ma production. Et là, ça induit donc la nutrition. Alors, si c'est des mauvaises pratiques culturelles, impérativement, ça aura des actions négatives sur la santé des populations. Mais si c'est des pratiques en phase avec l'environnement aussi, ça aura donc des retombées positives sur la santé des populations. L'alimentation étant au cœur de tout ça. Maintenant, s'appuyant sur ça, à partir maintenant de ces pratiques culturelles, de ces retombées qu'on pourra maintenant définir en quoi nous sommes résilients. Alors, résilients face à quoi? Face aux effets des changements climatiques, donc face à ce contexte et surtout à ces maladies qui peuvent souvent émaner de nos mauvaises pratiques culturelles. Maintenant, nous concernant, je l'ai dit tantôt, dans le cadre de nos interventions, c'est essentiellement accompagner les producteurs à aller vers une vision beaucoup plus respectueuse de l'environnement. Donc nous misons essentiellement sur l'agroécologie. Et sur ce, pour l'essentiel de nos projets et programmes agro-environnementaux sont orientés, certes agroécologie, donc respect de l'environnement, mais nous misons avec donc des entrées femmes et jeunes. Parce que constitue la majorité de la population, s'ils ne sont pas impliqués, jamais on ne pourra arriver à terme donc de toutes nos ambitions. Alors, donc, nous accompagnons ces producteurs-là à gérer de façon optimale la santé en se basant sur des données factuelles et techniques. Donc, vous voyez, au-delà de l'analyse de sol qui permet de comprendre, d'avoir une base zéro, une situation de référence qui permet d'apporter les correctifs nécessaires pour mieux accompagner les populations à être beaucoup plus résilients. Nous prévoyons nous savons qu'au travail du Sénégal, par exemple, le taux d'alphabétisation est très faible. Donc, il faut essentiellement une approche réfléchie qui permette aux producteurs d'optimiser l'intégralité de ces connaissances-là. Donc là, c'est pour cela que nous misons sur des formations. Donc, moi, j'aime pas trop d'ailleurs le terme formation, mais l'approche andragogique. Nous considérons que le producteur a un vécu, une expérience à partager, et nous apportons la touche scientifique avec vraiment une approche beaucoup plus simple à travers, par exemple, des kits d'analyse de sol manipulables qui émettent juste des couleurs, donc des informations sur lesquelles le producteur peut s'appuyer et apporter à travers les recommandations des éléments de réponse vis-à-vis de ces problématiques causées essentiellement par le climat, mais aussi par sa propre main. Donc c'est comme ça que je ne peux pas trop tirer en longueur. Et on aura l'occasion peut-être d'approfondir tout ça à l'occasion des ateliers qui nous attendent. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, M. K, pour tes propos. Nous savons que le digital, we know that the digital transformation is really mainly youth-led business. We've seen young people in Rwanda creating applications like Tap and Go, which is now really being revolutionizing the transport sector in Rwanda. We know that really the young people are the ones who will be driving this agenda. So the next speaker will be Dr. Racine Lee to speak about the presentation. But before, we have in this room a young lady who really started very, very small and who's now going global, doing really the business of pumpkin transformation. And now you can find her products in the shelves of Sawa City and Simba Supermarket, and she's here. So Marie-Ange, what do you see as opportunities for young people, and especially women entrepreneurs, to leverage technology to really take the lead on the nutrition agenda for our continent? You have 1 minute to go inside.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. I am Marie-Ange Mukagahima. I am the founder and managing director of Zima Healthy Group, a pumpkin processing company based in Rwanda. And we make a healthy and organic product from pumpkin seeds. We are based here in Kigali, and we have been into this venture for since 2017. I was a student at the University of Rwanda. And I made a research about how we can make something special that's contributing to our social community, and also at the same time bringing money. And I came up to find out that we have idle resources out there in our community that are not bringing money to the rural farmers and not doing anything else. Pumpkin seed and pumpkin were regarded as the food, and because they were perishable, they were not growing as commercial products and didn't be considered as something that can bring money to anyone in the community. But by processing them into extra virgin pumpkin seed oil, everyone has regarded it as a god. And we make, I know many of them here, you know about the olive oil. Some people think that the olive oil, it is only thing that can bring, that can be a high quality oil. And it's not true. In Rwanda also, or in East Africa, we have other seed that can make the same quality as olive oil. Olive oil is brought here from European countries, and we are consuming every day other small enterprises oils, while here we can make them from available resources from our nature, like pumpkin seed, like sesame seeds, like everything. So it is with that initiative, we said, let's make from our local raw materials the best and high quality product that are not only served as food, but also the raw material from some medicine, herbal medicine, because pumpkin seeds are many times prescribed by different studies and doctors that they are good for reducing the risk of cancers, especially for prostate cancer, and they are good for non-killer diseases like cardiovascular disease, blood pressure, diabetes, and so on. They are good diet for them. So we can't achieve such kind of product or high quality food without technology, because through technology we make like a cycle from the farm to the food processing area to the market and everything. Such kind of value chain, including a very strong technology, because to take the pumpkin seed from the farmer, an educated farmer from the ground, until it is maybe exported to external market from outside Africa. There within that line, including a very big technology from marketing, for food processing, for machinery and everything. So there is a big technology including there. And regarding this as a very big opportunity for we as young entrepreneurs to grab this kind of opportunity that could help us not only based in Rwanda, but across Africa, across East Africa, and putting our innovations to another level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marie-Ange, for your insights and opportunities that you see on how digital technologies can really revolutionize the agricultural value chain. So without further ado, I want to invite Dr. Racine Lee, who is the Director of Data and Digital Products at Academia 2063, to talk about digital platforms and tools as enablers for policy change. Welcome, Dr. Racine.
All right, good morning, everybody. So can I have the slides, please? Maybe in the meantime, as Seraphin said, my name is Racine, and I work at Academia 2063 as Director of Data Management, Digital Products, and Technology. And today I'm going to present all right. So the presentation is entitled Digital Platforms and Tools as Enablers for Policy Change. The presentation is a four-fold presentation. I'm going to start with an introduction where I'm going to talk about the data characteristics that we might want to have when it comes to building a data-driven decision-making process. And for the second aspect, I'm going to talk about the DERPIn customized agua, which is one of the deliverables. Not the only one, but we will have several other products that will be attached to an integrated platform. And then the DERPIn integrated platform that I would like to present quickly what we intend to put in that platform and for which purpose, and then having a conclusion. So for the introduction, okay. So I think by now we all, from the previous speakers, we noticed how the continent is very prone to several shocks. I think several of my predecessors talked about COVID-19 crisis, the climate variability, climate change crisis, the Ukraine crisis, among others. I think here what is special with these crises is not the fact that we never witness a health crisis or wars or maybe a climate variability, is the intensification of those crises and also the added frequency, the increased frequency at which rate they happen. So what we want to do if we have those kind of crises and also the complexity of them happening at the same time is to have actually tailored databases. I think someone mentioned it, and also analytics that can help us to planning and intervention to relieve communities. And for that we have, it's not exhaustive, but we have some principles that need to be followed when it comes to leveraging data for decision making. For example, the data frequency, which is basically how regularly we can have access to those data, because we know that those crises, they change very fast, and therefore having a frequent data access is also important to tell us what is going on the ground. The data disaggregation, and especially here special disaggregation, because if you look at climate crisis, for example, temperature spikes and erratic rainfalls, they don't happen homogeneously across the continent or countries. There are some pockets where they have spikes, the others might have a decreased temperature or rainfall. So that localization of the crisis needs actually to have such disaggregation. The data quality, I think that is the most important one, because since we are talking about data-driven decision making, we need to make sure that the data is actually reliable. Therefore, we avoid or reduce the biases that we introduce in the decision making process. And the sustainability here, it's more about how can we make sure that the data we need to make decisions will keep coming. And finally, the data visualization and data-driven analytics. That might help actually to move from the information stage to the knowledge stage. Because if we get the information, raw data might not tell us anything. But with some processing, we might transform it to a story that can inform decision makers to take a decision. So those are the main characters that I wanted to share. I have a question. Is it me moving the slides or you? You? Okay. So for the second aspect, no, the previous one, please. So what I would like to talk about here is actually developing the analytics and providing those data. It's the previous slide. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. So here, for example, just developing the analytics and the data is one aspect of the process of solving the crisis. But the way actually we design, the way we deliver the data is as important as the process of building them. And that's why here we would like to develop not only the data and the analytics, but also the platform that will be the receptacle of those data. That is interactive, that is also cloud-enabled. I will talk about it later. And that's the main idea here at the end of the process, having that platform. Now, what are the advantages of having a digital platform? I think we have several, we've been hearing several advantages of that recently in this room. But one of them here is that, for example, we can have collaborative decision-making, even though the decision makers are not in the same room, in the same space. For example, in a country, you can have local governments having crisis, but if they have access to the same platform in real time, that might avoid having different data sources to take the decision. That is one aspect of it. Another one is that they can take remote decision making, if, of course, the fast data response is enabled. So here, fast is, I mean, it depends on the type of crisis. Sometimes collecting the data after 1 week is still okay, but for some crises, you might have to have access to near real-time data. That might help you to really take immediate action. Another one is to have access to predictive analysis. So here, it's more about maybe avoiding those technical field-level expertise, such as machine learning or those predictive analysis that are heavy in theories and technicalities. How can we make sure that we make them available online? And then there is no need to go into technicalities into developing them. For example, there is one advantage of having a digital platform that embeds that, and also the resource saving with automated data analysis and sharing. Next slide, please. So what we are trying to do here is that to get inspired by those principles and to build the DERPIn integrated platform, and that will mainly embed these three features. We talked about the customized Africa Agriculture Watch. I will come to it later. The extended vulnerability index mapping and nutrition adequacy map. But at the end of this presentation, I will show also additional analytics that we would like to add into this platform. But here, I will talk about the customized Africa Agriculture Watch quickly. Next slide, please. So I think for some of you, you've been already get exposed to what AGWA is. But in general, let me just explain what it is. The Africa Agriculture Watch is a program at Academia 2063, and it's a web platform that provides agricultural production yield, food crop production yield, and food crop production and yield forecast for 47 countries and 9 crops as of today, and before the harvesting periods. So the platform is using basically a model that we developed at Academia 2063 called the AFCP, Africa Crop Production Model. And that model combines satellite remote sensing data and artificial intelligence, and more specifically machine learning, to predict what would be the most likely production or yield in 47 countries and for 9 crops. So The platform now embeds the data, and the data is granular at a pixel community level, and it is open access. Anybody can go to the website and access the data and download them actually. Next slide, please. Going further into explaining what AGWA is quickly, here are the pillars of AGWA. So basically, the idea of AGWA is how do we move from raw data, satellite images that might give us a lot of information about dynamics on the ground, to knowledge, and all the way to dissemination. Now from there, decision making can be done. So in between those pillars, you will have several tasks or features that might need to be taken care of. For example, from raw data, when it comes to remote sensing data, all the way to knowledge, something that we can interpret. You might need to have access to spectral band processing and cleaning. I think our colleagues here at Rwanda Space Agency also are very well aware of these aspects. Time series analysis, thematic mapping, and predictions using machine learning. Those are some technical aspects, but the intention of building AGWA is that how can we actually support stakeholders to jump from raw data to knowledge without having to go into these technicalities. And then from knowledge to dissemination, there are also some aspects that are needed. For example, data-centric web application. Here we have Mr. Babakar Sise, our senior manager information system. And to increase the accessibility, how do we make that information available to everybody? And then the data visualization, as I mentioned earlier, for interpretability, because those data, usually they come with just numbers and maps. We need to process them and add additional information on it for it to be interpretable. And then the maintenance, which is actually a key factor, because AGWA per se, using remote sensing data on a digital platform is not an innovation itself. But here, the innovation is to use that data and bring the predictability and also the sustainability. How actually we have a dedicated team that works on it, that way the platform might not die. That's the main idea of AGWA. And then from there now, we make that information available for decision makers and other policy makers to have access to it and make their decision. Next slide, please. Now, what do we mean by, I think we have an image here. By remote sensing data, I will go very fast on this. So basically here you have two images. So this one is not complete though. But it's the same image. Here we have a normal satellite image where you recognize, for example, croplands. Here's the same image in the red or near infrared band. And then after processing, you will have here a different type of information, which is the normalized difference vegetation index, which is a proxy to tell us how healthy the vegetation cover is. Now, why we decide to go for remote sensing data for several advantages. First, we can cover a large area with just one image. Each image gives us detailed specific information because each satellite image will have different layers of information. Each layer is telling us something different. And then we can also revisit the same area in a year. Sometimes it can be 45, sometimes it can be even 100 times. So it means that we can do some monitoring and evaluation and see how things are changing on the ground. Next slide, please. And now, an example of parameters that we use for the AFCP and AGWA is like, for example, the vegetation index here for the continent, here the land surface temperature and the rainfall data. So what we are looking at basically is the signatures of each object on Earth as a proxy to identify the object itself. And then by looking at the trend and how it changed throughout seasons, now we can combine it with something we would like to predict, like production. And that's what we use. Now what we do here is at the beginning of the season, we go and collect the data from the satellite on croplands, and then we look at historical production data and we ask the model to predict it. In terms of prediction, next slide please. That would be my last one on AGWA. Okay. We have a, so I'm going to explain here a little bit. I think that the projection is not working well. Okay, so basically for the prediction as a skeleton, we have here the training phase, and here we have the prediction phase. When we have a data set, we divided it in two parts. So here we will have the input data. So basically those remote sensing data that I talked about, land surface temperature, rainfall, evapotranspiration, those information tells us what are the biophysical data about the crop. And here we have something we would like to predict, for example, production data. So we take those two aspects and we put them into the model. The model will take a first guess, that's the prediction. And then the prediction here, we will compute the differences between what the model is predicting and what we ask the model to look at. And then that difference will be put back into the system here until we reduce the gap between the predictions and the data. So it's just an iterative process. And then once we have the model that learned the patterns between those two parameters, we put them into the model. So basically, at the beginning of the season, we collect a new input data and we ask the model what might be the production with a certain level of accuracy. Next slide, please. The next slide is going to show the kind of results that we have on Agua. So as you can see here, you have the granularity. Here, for example, I think it's the maize production ratio we produced at the onset of the COVID-19 crisis. Now we are already starting to produce the 2023 predictions that are already available. Here is like the ratio between 2020 and 2017. At that time, we wanted to make the ratio between a year where we had COVID-19 and a year where we don't have COVID-19. And we did the same here for Central Africa. Now, what do we mean by customized Agua? This is Agua. Basically, you go there, you have a prediction, you have maps that will tell you what is the predicted food crop production and yield. You will also have access to geophysical data trends that are available for download and interactive. Now, next slide, please. Thank you. What we, as of today, the Agua platform, each pixel is at 10 by 10 kilometers. So basically, the map that you saw earlier, each pixel has a size of 10 by 10 kilometers, which is huge. Basically, it's a community level. So what we are trying to do here is that how can we reduce that resolution at 30 by 30 meters or 10 by 10 meters? So basically, each small square pixel on the map will be between 100 and 900 meters square, which is actually more aligned with the type of, the size of farmlands in Africa, right? So here, Agua might be helpful actually when it comes to macro decision making, because it's still bringing the predictability, but if we can reduce that, that gap, it will be even more impactful. So that's the main purpose of building the customized Agua. So to do that, now I'm just going to show maybe what do we need to do to achieve that aspect. We need to have what we call a crop mask. So I'm very happy that we have our colleagues here from Minagri and RSA, Rwanda Space Agency, we talked about it. So a crop mask is the map that will tell us where can we find a crop X with its location. It's a map basic that telling me if you take this latitude, longitude, this is going to be maize. If you take this latitude and longitude, this is going to be sorghum. That's the map that we need to have. And we need to have it at the resolution we want, like 30 by 30 meters or 10 by 10 meters. That's what we need to build. Once we have that, have the historical production, we should be able now to predict agricultural production in yield at 10 by 10 meters or 30 by 30 meters, which is even more accurate. Next slide, please. So what is a crop mask? So basically, this is a crop mask. That's what we want to build first. So it is a map where you have, for example, plots, and each of them, you will have a color, and each color is going to tell us which crop it is. For example, here we have oilseed rape, winter wheat, and this is an example. And this is a perfect example because if you look at the scale here, you will have almost 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers. So Agua today, one pixel will be this size, but what we want to do is actually to even go further in details and have this kind of maps, right? And to do that, we need to have to achieve two things. The first one is to build a crop footprint database. each crop has a specific footprint. So basically, how do we recognize that this is maize or this is going to be sorghum? That's what we call spectral signatures. That's what we need first. And then the second is actually the actual crop on the ground. And that's where actually we're very happy to partner with PAFO and also institution. That will help us actually to go and collect the second aspect, which is the crop labels. By the knowledge on what is going on the ground, we will also collaborate, of course, into defining the locations where we might need those information. Next slide, please. But for the first aspect, we already started and building the footprint. How do we identify a specific crop? So one first aspect that we need to do, and we did actually, is to isolate crop lands from other land use land cover. If we take the example of Senegal or Benin, we take the map, we will find, for example, buildings, we will find forests, we will find croplands, grasslands, wetlands, water bodies. So all of them are embedded within the map. But us, we are interested into croplands, so we need to isolate them first. And then the second one is now for each of those pixels in croplands, we extract those spectral signatures or footprints. We can put it that way. Now, that brings us to this map. Here, for example, imagine we have to go and collect the labels. We can randomly select points and send people to help us collect those labels. But it might take a lot of time, for example, when it comes to a whole country. Now, one artifact is that we use the footprint of those crops, and then we group them by similarities. Basically, we just say, let's group the pixels by their spectral signatures. If they are, for example, in this room, we can group the room by age, by gender, by country of origin. So those are the parameters that we use to group the room by similarities in one aspect. So here we group the pixels, the crops, by their similarities in their spectral signatures. Now you can see that collecting the data here might be easier because we target each group rather than just going randomly. So here, if we had to send 10,000 people, here we can say, okay, let's do, for example, 200 people by group. For example, it might be easier. Next slide, please. So when it comes to ground data collection work, so first of all, we need to work on the survey for crop labels, something that we are working on. The crop labels is already produced and under review, but we have also other data collection that we have to build when it comes to vulnerability and also the nutrition. And an application will be implemented within tablets. We will work with our colleagues in countries. That way, when they go on the ground, they'll have the tools to record the GPS coordinates. That way we know where they are, take a picture of the land, and then tell us what kind of crop is there. And then the app also has been created and under review as well, and actually testing it. And now after we have done those two, also we are working on how do we create the locations where we need to go and collect those labels, and then that is in progress. And then the agreements with our partners organization here for data collection, and also training materials, because we will have to work with our partners to train them into how to use the app, or if they face issues on the ground, how to correct them, or what is the next best step to take. And then that's why here I put here the partner organization will help us to collect crop labels, but production data as well, and additional data for vulnerability index mapping, but also for the nutrition. It's not going to be like one survey, it's going to be several surveys within the tablet. That way we can optimize time and resources. Next slide, please. I'm almost done. And so once we have developed, so I exposed what we intended by, what we meant by customized AGWA. Now, once we develop the AGWA platform, and then we work on the extended vulnerability index as well as the vulnerability, nutrition adequacy, sorry, all of them will be embedded within a digital platform that is interactive, cloud and GIS-based for the interactivity, but also for the maps. And also that will be available everywhere. So for now, here we will be having, for example, food crop production and yield forecast coming from the customized AGWA. We'll be having also crop monitoring features for using biogeophysical parameters, crop type maps, because we'll be developing it with colleagues, and also vulnerability and nutrition maps. But additional features, as I mentioned earlier, will be, for example, adding greenhouse gases profile on countries by land use and land cover, and also adding some third-party data like pH and nutrient content, surface water, bodies profile. Next slide, please. And then as an example here, for example, is a work that we've been working on within the team. This is like the Senegal methane profile over croplands, yeah. And now here, this is the global profile, and this is for croplands, and here is grasslands. So we just attribute each greenhouse gases emissions by land use and land cover. Next slide, please. So this is something that we already processed for all African countries. We'll be adding them on the platform as well. Here is also another work that we are doing about putting together the data for the soil pH at between 5 and 15 centimeter depth, and also total carbon content in Western African countries, but the data is available for all African countries. And next slide, please. Also, this is a draw index that we developed at Academia 2023 for another project, but also this one, which is a third-party data for water occurrence as a change of intensity. So the idea is to develop analytics ourselves, but as well as adding additional features that might be an addition to the decision making. So that also that we will do. So all in all, we'll be developing those analytics. We'll be very happy to collaborate with our partners here. The crop type classification, the crop map is an innovation. There's a lot of people that are not doing it at scale. We are very happy and confident that through this partnership we'll be able to achieve that goal, but as well as developing the analytics for the DERPIn and for our country of interest. Thank you so much, and back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Racine, for the very important presentation on data analytics and the importance of these tools to really relieve policymakers from the guesswork. Is very, very important. Now, our next speaker, before we end speaker, Dr. Katrin Greter, you are welcome to present before we invite Dr. Osman for closing remarks.
Can I have the slides, please? I know we're running out of time and lunch is waiting for us, so I'll try and keep it short, but I'd like to speak to you briefly about the policy innovation part of the project. So policy innovation is a crucial element of the DERPIn project, specifically the learning events, dialogue between stakeholders and project countries, beyond the project countries, to really ensure that the findings and outcomes of the DERPIn project can be applied and put to use. Be great if we can queue up the slides, please. And for us, what is really important is to understand positive change and to learn from positive change. So understanding positive change means what works, where does it work, how does it work, and why does it work? So what can we derive as lessons from positive change that is happening? But then we also want to learn from positive change. So what are the good practices in policy and program design and implementation? And then we want to facilitate dialogue and exchange so that lessons can be replicated and be brought to scale in different countries, in different contexts. Next slide, please. So we believe that to achieve transformative change rapidly and at scale, policy innovation is crucial. But what do we actually mean by policy innovation? So at Academia 2063, we define policy innovation as the capability and agility to formulate and execute policies that respond effectively to either emerging or to unresolved development challenges, and that also function as an enabler to seize opportunities as contexts and circumstances change. So that's our perception, our definition of policy change, policy innovation. Next slide, please. Like I said at the beginning this morning, For DERPIn, we're drawing on the experience and expertise from some of the ongoing projects and programs at Academia 2063, one of which is the Malabo-Montpellier panel. And the Malabo-Montpellier panel, in a nutshell, is a group of 18 African and international experts on food, agriculture, science and technology, very broadly speaking. The panel works to support evidence-based dialogue and policy decisions to achieve the goals and the targets under the AU Agenda 2063, the Malabo Declaration, but also the SDGs and international climate change goals. And we do so by providing access to data and analysis to improve food systems sustainably and to build resilience. Very crucially, the Malabo-Montpellier panel focuses on good governance. So that is policy innovations, institutional innovations, and programmatic interventions on the ground. And through our work, we identified those countries that are making the most progress in specific thematic areas. So each year we publish 2 thematic reports, and for each thematic area we devise specific methodologies that allow us to pinpoint which countries across the continent are making the most progress. So then we do a deep dive into those countries. What is happening at governance level, so policies and institutional frameworks that are contributing to those progress. From that, we derive lessons and recommendations for replication and for scaling across the continent. So we collaborate with African governments, the African Union Commission, civil society, research organizations, the private sector, and international organizations. And we disseminate the findings of our reports at high-level policy fora, which are the Malabo-Montpellier Forum meetings, which happen twice per year. And at those meetings, we bring together the experts from the MAMO panel, but also representatives from those countries that are making the most progress and from other countries that still want to learn to really facilitate the dialogue and the exchange across borders. And it's facilitated by us at Academia 2063, the University of Bonn in Germany, and Imperial College in London. Next slide, please. So the core belief of the MAMO panel is to policy innovation is really that we want to support the highest level of governments, rooted in the firm belief that innovation at the highest level of government, so permanent secretary and above, can expedite implementation. And we believe like this, policies will be adopted, they will be adopted faster, they will be implemented at scale, and hence they will be transformative. And this is particularly important within a context of constrained public resources and an overall fragile economic situation where we need to avoid costly failed experiments and to achieve this transformative change rapidly. So we think that learning from success, and especially from peers, can drive transformative change across Africa's food systems more effectively and also to accelerate innovation elsewhere. So the DERPIn project will allow Academia 2063 and its partners to apply this approach by the Malabo-Montpellier panel, complement it, expand on it, to harness the experience and to build on other thematic areas and across countries. Next slide, please. Next slide. And that's my last slide, very briefly to talk about the deliverables and the outputs that are specifically targeted to the policy innovation part. So we heard from Racine earlier about the digital platforms and tools that will be built and expanded under the DERPIn project. And those will be complemented by country-specific, stakeholder-specific policy innovation outputs and activities. So one of the activities will be a research symposium where we want to bring together research partners, so academic institutions, other research organizations, for mutual learning and to explore the possibility of standing innovation partnerships in the 5 project countries initially, but possibly also beyond. We will then publish country-specific policy briefs that really address the aspects around vulnerability, nutrition, and climate change, and build in the lessons that we're learning from the DERPIn project over the course of 2.5, 3 years. We will also facilitate capacity training workshops in all project countries and with all our stakeholders. We will facilitate policy dialogues at the country level, so where we bring together stakeholders, including government, private sector, research organization, farmers organizations, civil society, to digest and learn from the findings of the DERPIn project in that specific countries and to provide support to develop a roadmap for implementation. We will also then bring all of those representatives from the 5 countries together to one high-level policy forum to exchange on the lessons learned from the 5 countries, but possibly also bring in other countries to, again, to facilitate this dialogue and learning across borders. And then finally, at the very end of the DERPIn project, so year 3, we'll produce a synthesis report that compiles all the findings and lessons learned and hopefully provides a roadmap for further implementation. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much. And I'll hand over to Dr. Usman for some closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks so much. Let me just write this note here so I don't forget. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. What I was just writing here, I don't want to forget, is that at the end of this project, we don't want to talk about what we have done. We want to show what we have produced. It's really very, very different. It's good for us to agree on it right now here. What she was talking about, the exchange, the dialogues, it was to bring the product of our research into use to decision makers, that they know it, that it's spread, that they can use that. As part of that, we need to create those products that will be used to support government and private sector as well as farmers' organization. It's really, yes, we are academic and research institutions, but we're creating products and services. What product we create and what services where research comes in, the data, the understanding, the evidence, and the purpose, so that the products are of use and utility to those who are going to use it. So that's really very important for us as a team here, that we understand that this is the finality. Not what we have done, but what we have produced at the end of the day, and it is being used. It's very, very important. So bringing, we talk about digital technologies because then those are things, those are tools, those are services, those are products that we would like to do. Just to give an example of what we might want to see at the end of the day, at the end of this project, for different categories, let me start just with farmers' organizations. Mr. Ka was talking about that. We could imagine at the end of this project to have tools and products or services that help farmers' organizations track and understand geobiophysical anomalies, land surface temperature, precipitation, evapotranspiration, India, whatever it is, that they're able to see and track and anticipate that. We would like farmers and their organizations to be able to track crop anomaly, to know where the things are going already before they can see it with the naked eye, so they can act and act sooner. Rasin just talked about the yields and the harvest forecasting that they have to be prepared. We would like them to have access readily to soil fertility information, working with the agronomic research centers, not guessing but knowing what is under their land and how they can fertilize, or at least how they can adjust their crops. We would like to help governments but also farmers to understand carbon dynamics in the soil, because if countries are going to go towards carbon markers, they need to be able to measure carbon content and therefore changes linked to uses and activities. So it's also good for farmers if they want to participate in carbon markets tomorrow to be able to measure how much they're contributing to carbon change. So these are technically not sorted, are not technically resolved, but we think the project can help us resolve that. We might even be able to work and have a system to predict and track pest and disease attacks so that you can, from the beginning, to know what to do and where your farming activities are going as a farmer. And of course, in the more drier parts of the world, but even in the more humid, a water availability profile, understanding it, being able to work on that also allows a lot of stuff that can go into the hands of the farmers. Which one of those we can, at the end of the day, produce, what the content is going to be, what the format is going to be. That's where we need the farmers' organizations around the table to be able to talk about that. But also that we need powerful leadership, and that's we need our research organizations to come and work together with us to help us do it. For governments, all of the things that I've just talked about are extremely important for them because they're everywhere in what they want to do. But I could imagine also that they're interested in knowing early on, having some idea of local food supply conditions. Through the harvest and yield forecast, they will know, am I expecting a bumper crop? Will I be able to export more as a country because my crops are going to be good this year? Or am I exporting to have shortages and therefore a high import bill? Even the Minister of Finance will be interested in that. So that kind of thing is important for them. They might want to know commodity food security situations from the vulnerability work we'll do and the nutrition work we'll be doing. We haven't talked about that here. Maybe tomorrow you'll hear that. But we want to be able to track the vulnerability states of local communities, not just when there's a shock, but we need to understand where things are really hurting the most. I have an anecdote here. It's not very Sahelian. I'm from Senegal. But if you go to the countries of the north where they have snow, municipalities know where to put the snow trucks to clean the roads before it snows. When they say it's going to snow next day or in 2 days, they're already ready because they have a very good understanding of what the landscape is. Do we know the vulnerability of communities? Do we know exactly which community is going to be hurt when there's a shock, and by how much? And what do we need to do to be ready? So those kinds of information are important for government, for Ministers of Local Administrations, and for social protection agencies and others. So that's going to be important for them. If you have this kind of shocks, it will be important for them to understand how is it going to affect my economy in general, my export, my imports, the rate of growth. So that readiness is going to be important for them to have. And we talked about greenhouse gas emissions. We just talked about soil carbon. All these countries, 52 African countries, have made commitments under the Paris Agreement on mitigation goals. How do you track it? How do you measure? How do you report against it? Right? And that can be complicated, but also can be easy if you get the right tools. So that's what this project could do for governments. For the private sector, of course, if you're invested in anything, you're a bank or an insurance, you want to know where there is a crop growth anomaly. If you're a bank and extended loans, let's say in northern Malawi, you want to know that the harvest is going to be good. Or if it's going to be bad, you make your provisions already now. You don't want to be surprised. If an insurance company have a lot of contracts in northern Uganda, and you know that the harvest is going to be bad, you'll know that you're going to be hit by a lot of claims. You want to know that before it gets there. So if you're a trader, you want to know whether the price is going to be low or high or where you're going to go and source your stuff, right? So therefore, yield forecast, pest and disease surveillance, all of those things are important for you as a private sector. So what kind of tools do they need? And what will we create for them to be able to use that? And finally, for research and development organizations, soil fertility map information that you can get from the nutrient tracking and measurements will help you fine-tune and focus your crop breeding and other things that you do. Crop suitability maps that we can derive from those soil fertility information. Same with the greenhouse gas emissions. If you are a research organization working on behalf of your government to reduce emissions, you want to know and be able to track this. So there's a lot of things that we can do. These are just broad ideas, some of which we are more in a position to create now and some less. But I think it was just to give an idea of how concrete we want to be at the end of the day. Not to look back and say, this is what we did in Senegal, Uganda, Malawi, Ghana, but these are the products we've produced for governments, for private sector, for farmers' organizations, for R&D. So thank you very much for being here. We look forward to continue the discussion. Murakoze cyane.
Murakoze cyane, Dr. Osman, for the wonderful insights on what we want to say at the end of the day is what we have produced. Thank you so much. With this, our event is closed today, but our logistic people informed me that we need a group photo. So I will beg your patience, so that they can help us to arrange that group photo. Thank you so much, and the conversation will continue during the lunch time. Feel free to network and ask any question during the lunch time. So if around, so someone to help us, okay? Yeah, thank you. Please. Thank you so much.